souls and wolves are hauling. Can you hear the voices calling? Do you feel how they are dragging, waiting for a second to push you to your limits, going strong and feeling better? But do you feel them? Can you hear them say?
Welcome to the Retirement Learning Lab, where we teach you how to retire without running out of money. My name is Van Richards, and this is the daily NASDAQ market update. Welcome to our show today. The idea of this show is we're going to give you a quick rundown of what's been going on in the market, and then we're going to talk about a couple of individual stocks. Today, we're going to be focusing on two different stocks. One of them is going to be Applied Materials, and the other is going to be Advanced Microsystem Devices or Micro Devices. That's AMD. You've probably heard of them before. So let's get right into it and start talking about what happened today in the market. The idea is what happened today. You can see basically the red was down and the green was up. That's a pretty easy idea to look at. If we look at what happened on a local basis, if we try and break it down to what happened in the United States, we can see that it was pretty flat from that standpoint. The Dow Jones Industrials eked up just a little bit. The NASDAQ was down. Actually, right before the close of the day, the NASDAQ was up, but it just couldn't hold on to it. It's been, the S&P 500's been flirting back with the highs that we saw before the coronavirus market crash, but it was a pretty flat week, quite frankly. We ended up about where we started from that standpoint. If we look at what happened in Europe today, it was down quite a bit more. The FTSE was down 1.55%. The Euronext in Paris was down 1.58%, but both of those were bested, so to speak, by the Euronext in Belgium. If we skip on over to the Asian markets, we can see that, gosh, the Shanghai index was up 1.19%. I don't really have a reason for that, but the idea is it beat all the markets today. The Nikkei was up just a little bit, Hang Seng, and then the Sensex in Mumbai was actually down 1.13%. Canadian markets were mixed. The small caps were up about 1/4 point. But when we look at the composites and the larger stocks, they were down just a little bit as well. Now, if we get into looking at what happened today in the market and look at the stocks that we're going to be talking about, I've got 3 lines that are drawn up here on the spaghetti graph that you'll see. The NASDAQ 100 is the one index that we compare everything to in this show, because we try to compare everything from that standpoint because we're talking about the tech industry stocks. I want to clarify, though, with the NASDAQ 100, let's talk about that just for a real quick moment. I think that's real important. When we look at the NASDAQ 100, yes, that is the 100 largest stocks that exist, and it is primarily tech stocks. But please don't be thinking that tech stocks are not diversified. You're going to see that some of these companies are well diversified and some of them aren't. Yesterday, we talked about a company called Align Technologies that make the Invisalign mechanism for orthodontists. They make one product, and they're not really a tech company, but they're in the NASDAQ 100. But when we look at some of the other companies today, the 2 companies that we're going to talk about today are predominantly going to be tech stocks from that standpoint. AMD is one of them. You'll see AMD is going to be the company that's in red, and you'll see Applied Materials, which is going to be the one in blue. Applied Materials had a really good day because today was their earnings call, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that ended up the day as we go along. If we go to the next slide, I like to kind of put this in perspective, and what we do is we look at those 2 stocks and the NASDAQ 100 over the past 6 months. If you go back and you look here where the cursor is kind of going around in circles, well, let's see. Let's back up just a minute. that went ahead just a little bit too fast. That's what happens when you do a live show, folks. Sometimes you get something good working and sometimes you don't. So, okay, we're back to the graph that I wanted to start with. Right here where the cursor's bouncing around, you'll see that's where the coronavirus market crash occurred. Now, if we go over to the other side, you can see here what happened with AMD over the past, let's say the past month or so. And what you're going to find is AMD has actually excelled quite a bit in a very short period of time. And there's several analysts that are saying that this company is overpriced at this time. And I think you're going to see that's true when we look at those individual stocks in themselves. And when we compare like Applied Materials, which is the one in blue, yes, here is today. They had a good earnings call, but they've been in pretty good recovering over the past 6 months since the coronavirus market crash. But let's get into the featured stocks just a little bit more today. When we look at AMD, if you've ever shopped for a computer, you're probably familiar with AMD because the AMD chips are in a lot of different, they're in a lot of different systems. The two main chip manufacturers that compete with them are going to be Intel and Nvidia. Let's bring that up next because that's what we're going to talk about next. And as we go past that, let's look and see what happened with AMD over the past 6 months. I think that it's more important at this point because we're going to be talking about valuation as we go through to the end of this broadcast today. And when we're talking about the valuation of AMD, it's really important to take a look at what's been happening over the past month. The past 6 months, let's go back over here. As you can see where the cursor is moving around, you'll see this is where the coronavirus market crash occurred. And then all of a sudden, we saw a large jump. One of the reasons why that AMD had such a large jump is because they had an excellent earnings call. And if we look at it over the past year, we can see that they've had a pretty good year from that standpoint. So is this a good time to buy AMD? I can't tell you to buy or sell, but I'm going to tell you what some other people who work in the company are doing. As you can see here, this is a report from the Motley Fool, and the Motley Fool was reporting that why AMD has jumped so much is because they had a 7.5% increase in earnings. It jumped 7.5% on its earnings call, which was on August the 12th, basically because there were bullish remarks that were made from the analysts. So we've seen quite a bit of increase that's there. Now, here we have it again. If you watched this yesterday, you know exactly what this is. This is a moat. If you've ever watched any type of medieval TV show, you know that moats protect castles. And if you had a moat that looked like this, I don't think you'd have a lot of protection because it's dry. There's nothing going through it. Now, why am I telling you this when we're talking about AMD and chips? The reason I'm telling you this is because AMD has no protection. They have no moat around it. In other words, their competition is right at the gates from the competitive standpoint. NVIDIA and Intel are right there with them. AMD's biggest competition right now is themselves because they are considered more of a bargain chip maker. So you're going to see in a few moments when we look at some of the valuations how that looks. When we go and we look at Applied Materials, yeah, you see that Applied Materials jumped up there 3.92% because they had a really good earnings call today. The semiconductor systems revenues were up 18% on the trailing 12-month basis, and the fourth quarter guidance, which the company gave, is up 25%. So they had a good day. Okay, now, which castle would you rather live in? Would you rather live in the first castle that had the dry moat? Or would you rather live in this castle that has this big, spacious moat? Who knows, maybe there's a few alligators around in there. I don't know if they had alligators in that time or not, but who knows? At least there's water that's in the way. It's a protection over to what's going on. Applied Materials has a very wide moat. That means that they don't have a lot of competitors. This is a really, really interesting company. If we look at them over the last, hold on, I'm going to get over here just a minute. If we look at Applied Materials and we look at the fair market value, the fair market value is so close to the last close. They closed today at 65.07. The value was at 65. I don't think that you could get closer. Well, I guess you could within 7 cents. Now, this is an information from Morningstar. Morningstar rates Applied Materials as a 3-star company. Now, if you see it from the standpoint of the stars, a lot of people think, well, a 1 star's bad, a 4 or 5 stars great. Yes, it is, but it's not for the reason that you think. If you are a 3-star company, basically you're neutral. And that's what you see here today. You see a 65.07 close and a 65 fair market value. You don't see much difference. If they were close, if they had closed down, let's say at 40, it would probably be more of a 4-star. If it closed down at 30, it'd be more of a 5-star. So you get the idea in there that the further away, the lower the value is from the fair market value, the higher the rating is going to be. If we go above that, and I think that you'll see what I mean when we look at Advanced Micro Devices or AMD. AMD closed today at 81.84. The fair market value is 31. Morningstar rates them as a 1 star. See, 1 star. The reason is because they consider them quite overbought. And when we look at what's going on inside of the company, this tells you a lot. This tells you an awful lot about what's going on in the company. When we look at Applied Materials, what we see, now don't look at the last 3 months because yes, there were some sales going on, but I think that that's an anomaly. When we look at the last 6 months, we look at the last year, what we're seeing is we're seeing more insiders buying than they are selling. And that's a big deal because you have people that are in the company that have faith in the company and they're buying it. So that should give you some indicator as to what might be happening toward the future. So take that as it may and put it into your portfolio selections, and perhaps that'll help you make a little bit more money if Applied Materials is the kind of company that you want to look at. Now, on the other side of the coin, let's go over and look at AMD. Okay, AMD in the last 3 months, they had 20 buys and 30 sells. In the last 6 months, they had 30 buys and 49 sells from insiders. And then over the past 12 months, we had 81 sells and 47 buys. The executives at AMD are selling stock. I think that they see the writing on the wall that the company is valued pretty high. If you even look at the executive, Lisa Su, who is the CEO of the company, she is selling a lot of stocks. This is her sales just in the month of August. And you can see that she is selling millions of dollars worth of stock. So I would perhaps think twice before you bought into this. Now, I can't tell you for your situation because you may look at this personally and you may go, hey, AMD's got a great future. I think I'm going to buy that stock. So go for it. If you're looking at it like Lisa Su or some of the other executives of the company, it might be time to run for sure from that standpoint. Now, how do you use this information? I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about some other ideas here in a moment, but I want to talk to you about how you use this information. I'm not giving you the information today so that you can run out and buy this stock and make a lot of money or short sell this stock and make a lot of money. The idea is so that you can build a portfolio that's going to last for a really long time. The name of our show is the Retirement Learning Lab. And our motto here is we help people to retire without running out of money. So the way that we do that is we analyze the different portfolios that clients have, and we look for times to sell, and we look for things that are overbought and to take profits at the right time. Now, a lot of times we might not be doing a lot of buying and selling, but we may be putting together an index for a client. Now, one of my favorite strategies is using something called direct indexing. That's where you're not going through an ETF, or you're not going through a mutual fund to buy an index. I do like index funds. You're not going through any of those avenues to buy those particular funds, but what you're doing is you're buying those stocks directly. And when you buy stocks directly in that particular fashion, let's say, for example, if we bought the NASDAQ 100, we could go through and we could say, okay, I want to put money in the market, but I don't want to get into stocks that are well overbought. So we could selectively pull those companies out of that index and just maybe have 80 companies that are better valued. The 20 companies may be overvalued. So we can be more selective in putting together an index for a client. And that's the idea of direct indexing. Now, another idea in direct indexing that works really, really well, and let's say that we go back to the idea of looking at the NASDAQ 100, and we want to look at the ESG attributes of those companies. Now, ESG, if you're not familiar with it, stands for environmental, social, and governance. And those are the attributes of companies that deal with those aspects of their business. Are they environmentally conscious? Are they socially conscious? Are they dealing with social issues from a company standpoint well? And are they dealing with governance? In other words, how are they dealing with how the company is run? So the idea there is we use outside sources, and one of them that I like to use is MSCI, because MSCI gives a lot of great information and does an awful lot of great research into the governance and the social aspects and the environmental research that into companies goes. Another company that I like to use for research is called Inspire, and actually they give us some direction also from a biblical standpoint. And then also I turn to Morningstar too, because Morningstar has a really good ESG rating system as well. And when I culminate those bits of information together, then I can bring it to you, and you can select stocks that might fit your preferences. You might be vegan and decide that you don't want to have a company that deals with animal testing. You might be Christian and you decide that you want to deal with companies that are primarily Christian oriented or Christian friendly, biblically friendly. Or you might deal with companies that are more environmentally friendly, those that take care of the good stewards of the environment. So let's get into that just a little bit. I think that's our next step that we want to go to. So here we go. All right. If you've watched in days past, you've seen this chart. For those of you that are new today, I'm going to go through this real quick. This is a listing. This is a representation of the NASDAQ 100. And what this is showing here, follow the cursor where it's wiggling around up here. And you're going to see that these are the companies that have negative ESG attributes, companies that have nuclear power, GMOs, weapons, animal testing, gambling, alcohol, pornography. These are companies that have issues in those particular areas. And you could see that if you were vegan, there are 11 companies in the NASDAQ 100 that do animal testing. We haven't gotten to those yet, and we will in days coming. So keep up with us and keep tuning in and watch again for more information. But today we're going to deal and talk just a little bit more about AMD and Applied Materials. So let's talk about that a little bit more. This is information that comes from MSCI. You can go to their website and find this same information. It shows that Applied Materials has an exceptional history in their ratings system, which you see, which goes from CCC to AAA. You can see that they consider them a AA company. They're extremely good in what they do as far as being stewards of the environment, being good stewards of social issues, and also being good stewards of company governance. Now, Advanced Micro Devices isn't faring quite as well. You'll see that they're over here where Applied Materials was on the AAA and AA. Actually, they were AA. We see that Advanced Micro Devices is more along the triple B. It's not quite as high. This actually should be on the last slide. So let me address this. Applied announces a new 10-year goals for the roadmap for environmental stability. This should have went with the other slide, but I'm going to explain this real quick. Today in the earnings call, one of the big things that Applied Materials announced was their new 10-year goals and roadmap for environmental stability and sustainability. And that's a big deal because the company is continuing to advance forward in what they're working at. And I think that if you're looking for a company that is more ESG friendly of the two, it would definitely be Applied Materials. Advanced Microsystems does have more issues that are in existence. Product safety and quality are one of the areas that MSCI has indicated that is lagging. They're a good company, but if you were companies that are more responsible in ESG, this one would be below the other company that we looked at, Applied Materials. Okay, well, we've come to the end of today, and that's really what we're going to talk about. There's really just one more thing that I'd like to talk about, and it's this. If you're into retirement and you're thinking that you want to get into stocks that pay dividends, Applied Materials is a company that does pay a dividend. Now, you might think a tech stock that pays dividends. Yes, there are several of them. And when we do direct indexing for clients, if a client is looking to have like the NASDAQ 100, just companies that are paying dividends to supplement their income, then that's one of the things that we can do in direct indexing too. So we're going to leave it at that for today. That wraps up our show. If you have questions, type them into the comments, even after the show today, because if you're looking at this and you're looking at it from the standpoint of a replay, we follow the comments as it goes throughout the week, or I do, and I will answer you directly. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for joining me today, and come back and join me actually on Monday. Have a great weekend.